tenant law, and then we're done. I'll be doing in class a review, a sample midterm in class on the on the 20 on class number 27, and we'll be doing the midterm review the following class. Hold on, let me just get the dates. I think actually I didn't put the dates in the syllabus. I apologize for that. So the in-class midterm will be on the 26th of April. And then I'll review it the following Wednesday, the 28th. And that will take us to the end of the semester. So we are almost done. A number of you have asked me, if you can, work with me on one of the old sample exams. And I'm going to say, yes, you can. What I'd like for you to do, though, is you can finish it before the 26th. In other words, before we do the sample class final. If you want to work with me an old exam, I'm happy to do it, but the cutoff will be before. I'll just say on class 26, that's April 21st. That's our last office hours for the exam review. So if you want to do an old exam, try to get with me before April 21st or by April 21st. I'm happy to do it. The way I usually do those is to don't just email me the exam. I don't find that particularly helpful. Come in office hours, I'll go over it with you. I think that's much more helpful. And I'd recommend you start with the most recent final, which is going to be from spring of 2020. This is from last year. And you now know, I think, just about everything. So I think you're ready for it. This is my COVID semester where it's half in person, half online. So you can at least see what normalcy was like a little bit. All right. So any questions on that? Again, so if you want to meet with me to go for an exam, let's do it by the 21st of April. I'm happy to do it. And we'll get you guys ready for the final. All right. Any questions? Okay, then. Let me put the link for the class notes in the chat. There you have it. I want to begin by reviewing a little bit about marital property. And specifically, I want to talk about the issue of the migrating couple, which sounds much more adventurous than it is. That is a couple who moves from a community property state to a common law state, or a couple moving from a common law state to a community property state. It creates complications. So let's start with question number 1A. Let me get the poll going. I'll start reading it. So here's a setup. You have a husband and wife who are married in New York, which is a common law state. The husband has a savings account that's separate property with $100,000 in it. You're allowed to do that in New York. You have separate savings accounts. Easy. Husband and wife move to Texas. The husband puts a will saying all of his property goes to his son. And then the couple has not accumulated any community property, I tell you. The husband dies. And his only asset is his savings account. Same question from last week. Which of the following statements are true? Wife gets nothing, son gets everything. Wife gets 25, son gets 75. Excuse me, wife gets 50, son gets 50. Wife gets 100, son gets nothing. All right. And can someone please tell me who's up next in the roster? Okay. Oh, I'm at the top of the alphabet. That's right. I did Z last time. Okay, back to the top. All right, Nicholas, what is your answer here, sir?
I put A.
Okay, tell me why you put A.
I put A because they were married in New York. Even though they migrate, they will continue to follow the characterization of the property as it was when they got married. Okay,
excellent. Thank you, Nicholas. All right, so keep in mind, right, this began in New York. New York has common law property. It doesn't have community property. Nicholas, let me ask one more question. Had the couple died in New York, how much would the wife have been entitled to?
She would have been able to opt out enforce her elective share, and she would have gotten, I believe, 25, maybe 15.
Which one is it? You seem a little uncertain.
25,
Why 25?
because she would have been entitled to half of the,
How much was the savings account worth, Nicholas?
100,000.
So what does she get on the elective share? Say it again?
50.
Is it 50 or 25? You tell me two different things.
I'm saying 25 final answer. She's taking half of her half as she can do from the elective share.
No, that's not right. If the account's worth 100, how much does she get?
50. She gets half.
Okay, is this your real final answer?
Yes, it is.
Okay, now you're right. Okay. So with the elective share in New York, she would get half, 50,000. Okay. But, and here is the huge, but they move. In Texas, she cannot use the elective share. Texas courts will not grant you the elective share. So all she can rely on are the laws of property. Okay. And under the laws of community property in Texas, she would get half of the husband's share of community property. But they have none. Half of 0 is 0. Therefore, the wife gets nothing. Not a penny. 0. So this is a tricky problem if you're moving from, say, New York to Texas or retire. You get nothing. Now, Dana, are you here? Dana? No, Dana. Nazreen, are you here? Nazreen, what could the couple have done to have avoided this problem? In other words, what could the wife have insisted upon to avoid her getting left out and getting 0? What could they have done to avoid this problem? Well, is there some way to change community property, some way to change common law to community property? Can you do that?
Change common law to community property. Not that I remember. Is there over that? I don't see any notes. The law of Situs rules?
No, Emma?
If both of them consent to make the 100,000 community property, they can do that. But they both have to consent.
Okay.
So then she would get some of that.
Okay. They both have to consent. It was called transmutation. Okay? Transmutation. Okay? When you transmute property, all right, when you transmute property, you convert it from common law to the community property. And you can do that. But that was not done here, so the wife gets 0. All right, we good? All right, try question 1B. Facts are a little bit different. Okay, husband and wife are married in Texas. Opposite. They purchase Blackacre, which is located in Texas as joint tenants. After they retire, the husband and wife move to New York. The next week, the husband dies. The husband will leaves Blackacre to his son. Can the wife exercise her elective share of a black acre? Yes or no? All right. Nesreen, try this one since you skipped the last one. What's your answer to 1B?
I put no
Okay. Why?
because it's, well, I put I have my notes the law to Situs rule. It can prevent the wife from exercising her elective share right as to the Texas land.
What exactly is the law of the situs, Nesreen?
Well, it applies to real property.
But what is the rule?
Well, I just put that it prevents the wife from exercising her elective share right.
But what is the law of the situs?
It's a common law rule, and it basically states that debts where the debtor resides. Hold on, hold on.
Nesreen, when you die in Texas, will Texas court let you file an elective share?
No, because they don't follow the they don't use elective share.
Okay.
It's just proper state where you
So, right, Texas courts will not let you file an elective share. Nesreen, as a general matter, if you die in New York and you're a married couple, can the surviving spouse file an elective share?
No, because the land is in Texas.
Okay.
And you have to
No. You're answering one question ahead, which is good, but I want you just one at a time. As a general matter, when a couple dies in New York, right? When a husband dies in New York, right? Can the surviving spouse file an elective share? Generally.
Generally, yes. If there
Okay.
was really there.
Now, let's say there was a bank account, right? Let's say there was a bank account, and the husband dies. Can the wife file an elective share in the bank account?
In New York, yes.
Okay. Now, what happens when it's not a bank account but real property, right? Real property located in Texas. Can the surviving spouse file elective share for real property located in Texas?
No, because they have to follow the law in Texas because that property is located in Texas.
Okay. Very good. And that's what the law of the situs. Excellent. Thank you, Nesreen. Very good job. So the answer here is false, right? But I want you to understand why. There's something called the law of the situs, S-I-T-U-S, situs, which means you apply the law of where the thing is. Real property is dirt, right? It's physical property. It doesn't move. A bank account can move. Personal property like a car can move. A horse can move. But Blackacre is stuck in the same place always. It's not going anywhere. And so long as you have Blackacre in a single place, right? Okay. It stays there. And the courts will apply the law, the situs, of wherever the property is located. Okay. Okay, Lacey, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I don't know why this is so confusing for me. So with the bank account in New York,
Law of the size only applies to real property. It does not apply to
Right.
personal property.
and you cleared that up for me last time because that was confusing
That's right.
me too. So in our hypo they said they required no community property while they lived in Texas, but say that they had added a little bit of money to that savings account. Like her husband, after they moved to Texas, added another $2,000 to that savings account. Could she then say that savings account is community property and I get half of it since he added to it after they moved to Texas? Or would it still not?
Well, here they started. Okay, so is your couple starting in Texas or starting in New York?
No, same hypo. They started in New York, $100,000, moved to Texas, but instead of requiring no community property.
You're saying, so
Yeah,
you're asking about
continue.
commingling, right? So they commingle their
Yes,
funds.
Yes.
Right. If there's commingling, then the account can be converted to community property.
Okay.
But the hypo I gave, he died right away and they didn't have
No
that.
commingling. Okay. Thank you.
Right. I have to tell you in the question they require no community property, otherwise the question won't work. Okay. But everyone see why the answer to that one is B? Okay. All right, let's go on. All right, so that's all old. Put that behind you, and let's do the new stuff. Landlord, the law of leases is tricky, and the reason why is students think they know what they're doing, but they really don't. So I encourage you, whatever you think you know about leases from your own interactions, forget it. Most of what people think they know about leases is using improper terminology. They don't use words correctly. So the phrase like month to month, holdover, term of years, these are legal terms that have meaning. And in your everyday leasing, because I'm guessing most of you have rented apartments, you're not using these words correctly. So in this topic, try not to think about how things you did in the past, right? Try not to think about, how much notice you have to give and how much back rent you have to pay. Just forget about it because it's going to confuse you. I know that's hard to do, but just sort of put that aside and compartmentalize that. All right, so let's try another poll question. This one bridges our topic of leases back to future interests. Okay. All right. Blackacre from lessor to lessee for 1 year, beginning October 1st, comma, then to A and his heirs. What interest does A have? All right. No, I think Elizabeth is next. Are you there, Elizabeth?
Yes,
All right, Elizabeth. What is your answer here?
I put B, remainder,
Okay, tell me why, please.
because it's an interest that follows a present interest, a term of years, that is going to a third party, A.
You're like so close. What's the definition of remainder that I gave you many weeks ago?
So it's a future interest that follows a life estate.
Not always life estate, because there's no life estate here.
Okay.
What's the better definition I gave you? Because it's often a life estate, but not always a life estate. In this question, there's no life estate, so that can't be the definition.
So would it be like a fixed time?
So close. What's that phrase I gave? You have this one burned in your memory.
Oh, goodness.
You're so close.
Present interest?
What kind of present interest? Anyone know the word I'm looking for? What's that word? It's a phrase. My other class got it. See if you guys get it. Yeah, Emma, go ahead. Sorry? Emma?
I think Lacey just said it.
Okay, well,
Termination.
you have the same one?
Yeah, it's natural termination.
Okay, you're both correct. Okay, very good. Thank you, both of you. Natural termination. Natural termination. So Elizabeth, just back to you. What's the definition of a life estate? Just plug in the phrase I just gave you.
Okay, so future interest that follows a natural termination that is going to a third party.
Why is this one a natural termination, Elizabeth?
Because it has a fixed term.
Okay, so what is the present interest here?
The present interest here is a term of years.
Followed by a
natural termination.
and what's the future interest?
The future interest is a remainder.
Perfect. You're done. Good. Thank you so much. Never forget our future interests, my friends. They're always lurking. Whenever you have any sort of present interest, right? Whenever you have any sort of present interest, you have a future interest. If the present interest has a natural termination, there's a future interest. In this case, it's a remainder. When you have a present interest in a term of years, a fixed term of years, which is what we have here, 1 year. After that 1 year, it's got to go somewhere. And here we have comma, then to A and his heirs. This is a straight up remainder. This is very easy for me to test you on, see if you're paying attention, right? Remainders don't only follow life estates. They can also follow lease. So don't forget that. In fact, I promise you, go back to your notes and you look at when we did remainders, I mentioned term of years. It's there. And it said, don't worry about it now. We'll come back to it later. Does that sound familiar? It's there. Trust me. I promise. I always mention it deliberately. It's in the little, the topic outline, the case summary for future interests. Odalis, I see your hands up. Go ahead. Oh, you're in the classroom, I think. Let me put you off mute. Go ahead.
So if you want to take it a step further, would it be fair to say that this is a vested remainder because A is ascertained and there's no condition precedent?
Someone's doing her homework. Good job. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, see, I can tell you're smiling, even though your mask is covering your face, but I can tell you're smiling. We've learned to read eyes in the last year, I suppose. Although I do want to get one of those new Razer smart masks. You've seen those? It's basically like this translucent plastic and it's like basically filtration and a microphone system. Like, Razer, they make like computer accessories. They have a mask that's like just basically see-through. And it's like, filters and lights up and actually has a microphone so you don't sound all muffled. It's like $300. I'm waiting for it to come out. I think that's what I'll use for class. I'm not sure. I have to. You guys are laughing. I think about these things. You have to look good on camera. This is we're Instagram Zoom professor stars. It's true. Look how much light I have. I have two. I have these two. I got two. I got not just one. I got two. Anyway, this is part of the job. Yeah, got my mic. It's all off camera. You don't see it, but it's got to look good. All right. Questions on number 2A. Oh, I screwed up my lighting. It's true. I don't want you have to minimize. If you put the light right in front of you, the glasses light up. So you put it on either side, illuminates half of your face. We need 2 of them. That's the trick. There's no way to get the reflection off the glasses. I've tried everything. Nothing works. So if you put the lighting on the side, it illuminates your face, but not direct glare. It's hard. It's hard. All right, question 2B. Try this one, guys. And this is going to be for, I think Andrew's up next. Question 2B. Blackacre from lessor to lessee for 1 year, beginning October 1st. What interest does the lessor have? A reversion, a remainder, or none of the above? All right, Andrew. Go ahead.
So I put a reversion.
Okay. What's the definition of reversion?
So it's it's when the future interest follows a life estate that.
But there's no life estate here, my friend.
Okay, so it's a future interest that follows the natural termination.
Yes, good.
Back to
Good.
the originator.
Originator, give me a better word.
Grantor.
Well, is it a grantor here?
I guess it would be lessor here.
Yeah, there we go. Andrew, help us out. What's the difference between a lessor and a lessee? Help us out here.
So the lessor is the one conveying the, I guess the rights, or maybe the present interest would be the right way to say it. And then the lessee is the one who's receiving the rights.
Okay, good. The lessor is the person giving the lease, and the lessee is the person receiving the lease. You remember this because me, right? Receiving. The lessor is the landlord. The lessee is the tenant. So in this case, the lessor, the landlord, has reversion because after a fixed period, after natural termination, goes back to the lessor. Good? All right, thanks, Andrew. I appreciate it. All right. Everyone get 2A and 2B. All right. So far, we've been doing the easiest type of a leasehold, which is a term of years. 1 year, 1 year, 1 year, right? Very straightforward. It ends automatically. In order to, actually, you know what? I'll say nothing more. Try question number 3. And this is going to be for David in a minute. All right. David, what do you think? David, you here? Are you in the classroom? No.
I was having troubles unmuting.
That's okay. What do you think, David?
So I put no.
Okay. Why do you say no?
Well, because it seems that it's a term of years, and so that it doesn't require a termination notice.
Okay. Very good. That's right. A term of years does not require any notice to terminate. Okay. You can move out the day before your lease ends, and you are fine. With a term of years, there's no requirement to give notice. Right? I can very easily trip you up on an exam this way by giving you a term of years, say how much notice is required, and the answer is none. Right? It's almost like a trick question. So here, the lease ends October 1st. You move out September 30th, you're fine. No problems. All right. Question with that one. All right. The term of years is the easiest one. And I think most of you have signed probably 1-year leases in your life, or 2-year lease or something like that, or a 6-month lease. These are the easiest leases, and they're the most common today. And the rules are the simplest. Okay? So someone always asks me, wait a minute, Josh, I signed a 1-year lease, right? Why do I always have to give notice, a 1 month in advance if I want to move out, right? Someone's going to ask me that question, or someone thinking about that. The reason why is you probably didn't sign a straight up term of year lease. You probably signed a term of year lease that has a built-in periodic tenancy afterwards, or a built-in tenancy at sufferance afterwards, right? Most of you have signed leases. If you actually read your lease, it's in there, I promise. It says the lease will say begin January 1st and then January 1st. But if both parties elect, you can go month to month, right? Most leases say something like that. So we actually have then is you have a term of years followed by some sort of periodic tenancy or a tenancy at sufferance. If you decide not to give notice, that's fine. You just move out on the day your lease ends and everyone's fine. But if you wish to continue, you have to then give notice. So really, when you give notice, you're not really giving notice that you want to leave your term of years. You're giving notice that you want to renew and stay further. You can just move out and then that's it, right? They can't force you to stay beyond your lease date. So that's why I'm trying to tell you, try to forget what you've learned because it's probably not exactly right. Okay. Questions in the term of years, the easiest one we have today. All right. The next one's a little bit trickier, which is a periodic tenancy. Alyssa, are you here? Alyssa? Oh, Alyssa's not here. Okay. Javon, you here? Are you in the class or at home? Javon, not here. Uh-oh. Odalis, I know you are here. No, Joseph? No, not Joseph. Odalis, you're here.
Yes.
Okay. Help us out here, Odalis. What's a periodic tenancy?
So a periodic tenancy is a lease that does not end at a specific point. Instead, it's like a period of fixed duration. So it's pretty much automatically renews. And I think going off of this question, like the next question, what I use to decide if it's like a periodic lease is when it says year to year. So
Good.
it doesn't really say like a specific day. It just
Good.
says from year to year.
Okay, that's really good. Thank you, Odalis. That's actually excellent. The easiest way to distinguish a term of years from periodic tenancy is the language used. If there's a specific period, right? 1 year, 5 years, 999 years, can you imagine? It's term of years, it's fixed. It will end on a certain date, right? If there's a certain date, it will end on April 1st. It will end on September 1st, right? That's periodic. Damn it, I screwed up. I'm sorry. If there's a specific date, that's a term of years. But if it uses the phrase month to month, or it uses the phrase year to year, okay? Month to month or year to year, we're dealing with a periodic tenancy, right? The magic words are month to month or year to year. They're not specific termination points. In theory, at least, the periodic tenancy can go on forever. In theory, at least. Doesn't have to, but it can. Okay. Questions so far? Catherine, go ahead.
I'm just trying to differentiate. So like the typical lease that we see would have from a date to a date with an extra clause at the end that says could go month to month.
Correct. That's a term of
And
years.
The reason why that's not
Right.
I'm sorry.
It's almost like a hybrid, if you will. It's a term of years followed by potential it's tenancy at sufferance.
I guess I'm having a hard time differentiating that specific
There's no
example
requirement to go month to month, right? If you leave on your termination date, that's it. It's over, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a term of years with an option for some sort of tenancy at sufferance, right? It's an option, not required to do it.
All right, thank you.
Right? If you have a lease that ends December 31st, you can leave December 31st, and that's it. You're done. You're home, right? But both have the option. If the landlord wants to go month to month and the tenant says no, there's no deal. If the tenant wants to go month to month, the landlord says no, there's no deal. There's only a deal if both of them agree. So really, I mean, the entire idea of the tenancy at sufferance doesn't really mean a damn thing unless the landlord's game. If he doesn't want you, he can get rid of you very quickly. He's like, no, never mind, I don't want it. And then you're over. There's no requirement to keep you in the property. All right, everyone with me? All right. Periodic tenancies can be either express or implied. You can have them in writing, or they can be oral. Why? The statute of frauds may not apply. Statute of frauds is generally for more than a year. So if you have a month-to-month lease, that need not be in writing. I recommend you have it in writing, but it doesn't have to be in writing. Death. Death does not affect the periodic terms. right? If the landlord dies, the periodic tenancy continues. If the tenant dies, the periodic tenancy continues. It goes on to the heirs, right? Same for a term of years. If there's death, it doesn't matter. It goes on forever. That's why you can have a 999-year lease. Okay. Any questions so far? All right. The hardest part about periodic tenancies is notice to terminate. Right. Again, if you all have a 1-year lease, you're not required to give notice. That was your question before. The term of years is no obligation to give notice. You can just leave. The landlord might ask you for notice, right? Because they want to plan and stuff. But if you don't do it, they can't punish you for it. All right. Very often landlords ask for stuff that are not legally binding. Why? Oh, they want to make sure if you're planning on sticking around, they won't rent the apartment to someone else. If you're planning on leaving, they'll put it on the market. But you're not obligated to tell them. You can just say nothing and leave on your date, and then you're fine. All right. But if you do have a periodic tenancy, you're required to give notice to vacate. All right. So I'll give you, there are 2 separate rules. If you have a year-to-year lease, right? If you have a year-to-year lease, how much notice is required? 6 months. Half a year, right? If it's a year-to-year lease, you have to give half a year, 6 months notice. So if your lease begins on January 1st, you have to give notice by July 1st to vacate. Again, if your lease begins and ends on January 1st, year to year, you must give notice on July 1st. What happens if you give notice on July 2nd? You're stuck for another year, right? If you fail to give notice on the day it's due by July 1st of the year, you're stuck for an entire other year on a year-to-year lease. It's very expensive. Okay. Yeah, Garrett, go ahead.
Like in real life, are there a lot of disputes about that where like someone says the landlord like waived the notice requirement a couple days and then the landlord comes back and tries to hold them for the next year, stuff like that?
Yeah, it's a good question. There's often questions of fact, right? There are often disputes about was notice actually given? Was notice sufficient? Was there vague? Was it clear? These are litigated issues because if you fail to give it correctly by the given date, there's an additional year of rent that has to be paid. So you're exactly right. These are issues that are litigated very often, especially in the commercial context. In the residential context, landlords usually move on and just rent it to someone else. But in the commercial context, 1 year of rent can be very valuable, and it does get litigated quite a bit. All right, so everyone understand with a year-to-year lease, a year-to-year periodic tenancy, 6 months notice is the rule, the common law. Modern law, it can vary, and every state has different rules. If I test you on, I'll give you what the state's rule is, but at least the common law rule is 6 months. All right. For a periodic tenancy, that's month to month, it's a little bit different. You need to give 1 full calendar month notice. 1 full calendar month notice. What does that mean? Michael, are you here? Michael? No, Michael. Emma, I think I saw you earlier.
Yes, I'm here.
All right, Emma, help us out. Let's say you have a month-to-month lease, right? And you decide to give your landlord notice on March 20th. What's the earliest that you can terminate the lease if you give notice on March 20th?
That would be it would have to be the end of the next month.
Just give me a date.
April 30th.
Absolutely. Thank you. Very good. And why April 30th, Emma?
You have to give 30 days notice and you can't do it in the middle of the month. So you'd have to wait until the next period.
Excellent. Perfect. Very good. Thank you so much. With a month-to-month periodic tenancy, you must give a full a full calendar month. It's not 30 days, it's a full calendar month. So if you give notice on March 20th, that means that the entire month of April has to go by. You have to go a full calendar month, which means you can vacate on April 30th. And I know this, you're going to hate me, but you need to know the months of the year. 30 days has September, April, June, and November. All the rest are 31. Right, remember? Unfortunately, I can't give you everything. If you want to bring a calendar for your final exam, it's open book. I don't mind, but just you need to know how many days from the month. Unfortunately, you have to count a little bit for this topic. All right, so you need to give 1 full month notice. All right, everyone, let's try a question. Go to question. All right, let's try question. I did question 3 already, right? Yeah. Let's try question 4. 4A. All right. On October 1st, 2020, Larry leases Blackacre to Tom from year to year, beginning October 30th. On September 30th, 2021, Tom moves out that notice. What's he required to give notice? All right. Lacey, you're here. All right, Lacey, what's the answer here?
I put A, yes.
Okay,
he's
well,
required to give.
Why?
Because of the year-to-year phrase, it's a periodic tenancy,
Good.
and he's required to give 6 months notice before he can move out.
Okay. All right, good. So let's now do question 4B, which is the follow-up question to this one. Same facts. Lease begins October 1st. He wishes to move out September 30th, 2021. When must Larry give notice to Tom? Wait, Larry is L landlord, Tom is tenantee. That's my thinking. No notice is required April 1st, April 30th, May 1st, May 30th. Okay. Okie doke. That was Lacey. Sandra, are you here? Or I don't think Sandra's here today. Victor, are you here?
Yes.
Okay, Victor. What's your answer here, sir?
I said I'm between 2.
Okay, tell me what you're between.
So I know it's periodic tenancy.
Good.
So you need a 6-month notice before you move out. And so I'm between B and C. But I'm going to go with B.
April 1st, is that your final answer?
Yes, that's my final.
What was the other one you were considering?
Oh, the 30th.
Okay, so why did you pick April 1st over April 30th? Why did you make that choice?
That's what he leased. He initially leased Blackacre on October 1st. So that would be the
Would giving notice on October 30th provide a full calendar notice, full calendar month notice?
no.
Correct. Okay. You're right. The answer here is B. This one's actually pre-divided. About 60% of you got it right, and you were sort of all spread throughout. Let me explain why. With a year-to-year lease, you have to give at least 6 months notice. Ready? Count with me. April, May, June, July, August, September. Right? Look at my fingers. April, May, June, July, August, September. That gets you to the end of September, and you move out September 30th. If you gave notice on April 2nd, just 1 day later, would not be enough. because you need 6 full calendar months. And that's the important phrase, calendar months. You can't do it in the middle of the month. So if you're ever uncertain about a notice question, just assume it's the first of the month. Even if you don't even really understand the topic, it's always going to be the first of the month. Middle of the month doesn't work. End of the month definitely doesn't work. So it's got to be April 1st. Okay. Question on 4B. Okay. Thank you, Victor. All right, 4C. Try this one. Now what happens if Tom fails to give timely notice? When will the lease be extended to? Oh, no, that's not a good question because you kids don't, there are no choices. Let's try short answer. Sorry about that. Yeah, it's like the question from hell. You can't answer it. I'm looking for both the month, date, and year to get this answer right. All right, let's stop it there. Garrett, I know you're here. What's your answer?
I put October 1st, 2022. So you lock them in for another year.
Exactly right. October 1st, 2022. That's exactly right. You're stuck for another full year. Good job. Right? So again, giving notice is important. If you fail to give timely notice, you're stuck for another year. A couple of you put Halloween, October 30th. That's not enough. It's not just another month. It's a full year from the date the lease begins. So it's not October 31st. Yes, Catherine, go ahead.
I put September 30th, 2022.
Yeah, it's not wrong, but I'll just give you the trick. The lease always begins and ends on the same day. If it's year to year, it's begin and end on October 1st. As a practical matter, that means you get the hell out of September 30th, right? That's what it means. But your lease actually ends October 1st.
My brain was telling me a year plus a day would be the first.
I know that's what you wanted to say, but it's the same day the lease begins and ends. I know that's what your brain wants to September 30th, but it's October 1st. Always the first, right? April 1st, September 1st, October 1st. That's the cheat if you're not certain. Okay, questions on question 4. All right, good job, guys. All right, let's do question 5 in a minute, but let me give you a preview. I'm sure when you did contracts, you learned the concept of mitigating damages. Where, like, let's say you have a contract for some widgets to be sold, and there's a breach of contract. And then the seller can find someone else to buy the widgets, and he does that, right? That sale mitigates damages. It offsets what the breaching party owes. And the breaching party is left the hook because of the unjust enrichment doctrine, right? You don't want to punish someone and then give someone a double reward. So if someone got rewarded for selling the widgets on a secondary market, then that's offset against the breaching party's damages. There's a similar concept in rent. If a tenant breaches his lease, or breaks his lease, and owes rent, but then the landlord can give the apartment to someone else, the money gotten from the other tenant offsets whatever the breaching parties do. And that's a fairly simple premise. This next question combines a concept of notice with a concept of mitigating damages. Okay? So take a look at question 5. This is multiple choice. All right. Question 5. On October 1st, 2020, Larry leases Blackacre to Tom for month to month. Okay. The rent is $100 a month. On June 15th, 2021, Tom notifies Larry that he will vacate on July 1st. On July 1st, Tom vacated Blackacre and stopped paying rent. Okay. So he gave notice on June 15th and he left on July 1st. Then on July 1st, he vacated and stopped paying rent. On October 1st, Larry leases Blackacre to someone else, Sally, for $100 a month. Larry sues Tom for unpaid rent from July, August, and September. At common law, how much money does Tom owe Larry? David, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, David, what is your answer?
I put B, that Tom would owe Larry, Tom would owe Larry $100.
Why did you put B?
Because he vacated without giving a month's notice for the lease. So it would have been extended a term of another month.
Okay, so he vacated on July 1st, but gave notice on June 15th. What is his actual vacation date? I know he left on July 1st. What's his actual date where he technically left?
Would it be August 1st?
Good. He can leave on August 1st. Is he on the hook for August rent?
No.
Is he in the hook for September rent?
No.
Is he in the hook for July rent?
Yes.
Correct. The answer is $100 B. Very good. About 70% of you got this one right. Maybe you put A, $0. That's not correct. Giving notice in the middle of the month doesn't excuse you. You're still on the hook for the next month rent. Now maybe you put B. That's incorrect. It's a month-to-month lease, and there's no obligation to run indefinitely. It ends that month. It doesn't end through October, which is why 300 is wrong also. It ends, it goes month to month. All right. David, did your hand pop up?
It did, but I'm not really sure how to articulate the question, so I'm going to wait until I have a better understanding of it.
You want to try?
Just with how you're talking about the mediation of damages, so if Larry had vacated correctly,
let's say he gave notice in May, right? Say he gave notice May 15th or June 1st, right? That would be correct.
Right.
Okay.
Well, okay, no, that's incorrect on my part. If he still gave incorrect notice, but Larry had leased it to cover that month.
Right. Let's say, yeah, that was actually my next question, which I'll give to you. Right. Let's say that he gives notice on June 15th and somehow Larry figures a way to rent out the apartment July 1st, right? He does it rapid. In that case, there's damages are mitigated if it's the same rent, then Tom is off the hook.
Okay.
Right. I could change a question like that as well. Yeah. Let's say he figures that he finds a tent the next day and the tent moves in July 1st. So there's zero loss of rent. In that case, there's no back rent. You can't double dip. We'll do a case like this, I think, next week or maybe on Wednesday. I can't remember. It's a case from New Jersey. Everything's legal in New Jersey. It's a Hamilton lyric. All right. Bad dueling. All right. Question number 5. Any questions? All right. Make sure you understand the answer to all 5 of these questions. If you don't, this topic's going to be rough. These are the hardest parts. Everything else in this rest of the class is downhill. So we've done the term of years. We've done the periodic tenancy. Next type of tenancy is a very strange one. It's called the tenancy at will, which you may never ever see. They're very strange because no one would ever want them. It lasts as long as both the tenant and the landlord want it to last. Right? It can basically last for a person's entire life. So long as the landlord and tenant are happy, it keeps going on and on and on. One party can terminate with 30 days notice. It could also terminate at death of one of the parties. Now you might ask, Josh, why would you have a tenancy at will rather than a periodic tenancy? I'm not sure why any landlord would actually sign this. It's a very strange idea, but it usually works if two people have a close relationship and they want to live near each other for forever. But it's a very weird relationship. Again, to terminate it, one party can give 30 days notice, or if one of the parties dies, it's over. Okay. Catherine, I know you're here. Catherine, do you want to give me the facts, please, in Garner versus Gerrish, our only case for today? Which I will get you a case summary for later this week. I'm sorry. It was a busy weekend for me, too. I'm doing the best I can. All right, Catherine, go ahead.
Yes. So the owner was Donovan, leased the home in New York to a tenant, Gerrish, for $100 a month, and the duration was in 1981. The owner, Donovan, died, and the executor of his will, David Garner, served Gerrish notice to quit premises, which I assume is to
get the hell out.
Vacate the
Yeah,
home.
it means to get out. Yeah.
And Gerrish refused. The petitioner said it was tenancy at will because failed to state a term and sued.
Okay, very good. Excellent. All right, thank you so much, Catherine. So this is one of these weird cases where people who are not lawyers tried to do something legally and they screwed up, right? They got what's called a form book. You may not even know what a form book is, but it's this sort of guide for non-lawyers where they can get sample contracts, sample leases, and different documents that they can use to engage in legal transactions. They improvised, and here, let me put it on the screen. They came up with this language. So, Catherine, when you read this language, just come back to you for a minute. What was their intent? What were they trying to do here? What do you think they were trying to do, Catherine?
I would say to allow him to stay as long as he wanted to.
Could he leave early if he wanted to before his death?
Yes.
Now, could the landlord evict Mr. Gerrish?
Well, there was no language reflecting that.
So the tenant could cancel, but the landlord could not cancel. Is that the deal?
Correct.
Okay. I think that was probably their intent. Why the landlord would ever sign this, I could not tell you. Maybe they were good friends. Who the hell knows? Okay. All right. So who's next? That was Catherine. Taylor, are you here? Okay.
In the classroom.
Okay, in the classroom. Okay, thanks, Taylor. So what is this, right? We've studied so far the term of years. We've studied the periodic tenancy. We've studied the tenancy at will. What is this? How do we characterize this lease?
It's kind of like a hybrid, it seems like. They call it a life tenancy.
What? Hold on. A life estate? Is that what you said?
A life tenancy.
What's a life tenancy?
I think they kind of make it up as they go. It's where he can remain on the property for as long as he wants. He has the sole right to terminate.
But why don't we just call this the tenancy at will? Why can't this just be a tenancy at will, which we studied already?
Because he kept the right to terminate, not the landlord. And that's kind of where this comes into play because Donovan died. And it's still lasting past Donovan's death.
So with a tenancy at will, they both have the right to terminate, right?
Correct.
But here, only one's right to terminate. Okay, thank you, Taylor. Excellent. So look, the New York court here is kind of like confused. It's like, wait a minute. We know what a tenancy at will is. We both have the power to terminate. But here, only the tenant has the power to terminate. Now, they could simply say, well, we'll just assume the landlord can terminate as well, which is what happened in this case. The landlord tried to terminate. And the court says, but we're not going to do that. We're not going to alter the intent of the parties. So instead, we'll make something up. And they made it up. They created they didn't create it here, but they basically recognized a new type of leasehold, which they call a determinable life estate. A determinable life estate. Now, the word determinable, if you remember, means cut short, like a fee simple. Determinable, it can cut short an interest. So Gerrish has a life estate which can last until he dies. It won't go beyond his death, his heirs won't get it. But Gerrish can cut short his own life estate by leaving. He and only he can cut short the life estate. No one else can do it. Right? Don't get too hung up on this class. It's a very this class is important, but not this case. I still don't understand what the hell determinable life estate is. I've been teaching this case for years. It kind of just, it's got to fit somewhere. It doesn't fit any of the three buckets. They have to put it somewhere else. So it's a very strange case, but I think it illustrates quite well how the courts struggle with different types of leaseholds, because there's always a desire to fit it into one box or another. Yeah, Lisa, go ahead.
I understand like the court's reasoning for not wanting to evict him in this case, not interpreting the contract that way. But as far as the landlord's rights, especially like in New York, if you think about property values and the way that they change, what kind of rights does that give the landlord as far as he's still got to pay his taxes and he still has to. So if this guy's living there and won't move out, can he raise the rent on him, or can he, what are the landlord's rights?
Nothing. Usually with a tenancy at will, the landlord has the right to terminate within 30 days notice, so there's not much concern. But here, the landlord is screwed. And maybe that's Donovan's problem, right? Maybe he had a really good friend at Gerrish and gave him this really sweet deal. $100 a month basically for life. No matter what happens to real estate, no matter what happens to property tax, no matter what happens in the world around you, a fixed rent. It's almost like rent control if you think about it, right? He's stuck. So until he dies, you're stuck with him. And in fact, the landlord died first, and then he had to, his heirs came, his executor came in and tried to clean up the property, and was like, sorry, you can't get rid of me. So unless Gerrish decides to leave, he's there for life. And I don't think under this lease they can raise the rent. I don't think they can, kick him out. Now, landlords have, let's call them soft ways of evicting someone. They could, turn the heat off. They can not make repairs to the property. They can not ensure the sewage system is functioning correctly, right? There are ways landlords can try to do this. I would not recommend it because in most jurisdictions, there are laws governing conditions of habitability. We'll talk about that next week. And if the landlord fails to upkeep the property, the tenant could sue. So, it's almost perverse, right? They try to get rid of him by making conditions worse. They get sued again. So they really are stuck with them. Don't change the locks. Never change the locks. That's the worst thing you can do. Don't lock a person out. We'll do a case like that next class. When you lock someone out, you're in trouble, right? Because the courts really dislike self-help. Remember that from contracts, self-help? Turning the sewage off and turning the water off would be self-help. It's not a good idea. So I think what the New York Court of Appeals has said here is, sorry, landlord, you're stuck for life until Gerrish dies. And that's what we have. And indeed, with rent control, that's often what happens. You wait for someone to die, and then you get their children, which is usually what happens. The children move in. All right. Questions on Gerrish? A weird case. It's a good teaching case, but it's a very weird holding. It's not very satisfying. All right. What do we have left? Okay. Yeah, Lacey, go ahead. I see this is bothering you. This is.
Sorry, I know.
I can see you're upset by this topic. I can tell.
Well, I would just imagine it doesn't happen very often, though. That's how I'm consoling myself, because I'm like, what landlord in their right mind would allow this type of lease? But
These are rare.
anyway,
These are rare. Yeah.
Is this something as far as our categories of leases for our outlines that we need to know? Should we add this one?
Oh man, I don't even know. I wouldn't add it to your outline. Because I don't know what it is. It's kind of a made up thing. That's my short answer. I'm sorry. All right, thank you for that. All right. The final tenancy, which is kind of a fourth category, kind of not, is a tenancy at sufferance. The tenancy at sufferance. The tenancy at sufferance is the holdover issue. Now, I'm sure a lot of you have like a 1-year lease followed by a month-to-month, right? That's basically an option to be a tenancy at sufferance, right? But you're agreeing to it, right? You can consent to a tenancy at sufferance. Your term ended, but you reach a deal with your landlord to stick on what's called month-to-month for some rent. And often the rent is higher when it's month-to-month because it puts the landlord at more risk. Okay? You could also have an implied month-to-month where, you know, your lease is over and you give your landlord a rent check and he deposits it. And congratulations, you've just made an implied holdover tenancy. Sometimes that's all it takes. It does not have to be in writing. How long does it last? It can go on forever, so long as both parties are game. But if the landlord says, sorry, this is your last renewal, that's it. You got to get going. So usually a month notice will suffice. Okay. There's no obligation for landlord to do a month-to-month. And in fact, the landlord will often increase rent for the holdover to try to encourage people to either pay more or get the hell out. Because I've found that landlords make money when tenants move in and out. They don't make money when people stay because there's costs of moving and there's damages. You know, they have to repair the carpet, all the other things they rip you off on. Like I had a dog for the longest time. I never once got my security deposit back. Never. She peed on every freaking carpet ever. So I never once saw. I usually had to pay for new carpets. In fact, when I would move to a unit, I'd be like, oh no, they just put a new carpet in the worst. Like, oh, like Josh put a new carpet. It's like, no, give me the old carpet. Give me the crappy carpet. That way I don't have to pay for it. Because they actually have some formulas of however old the carpet is. They have to measure how much they're going to charge you for it. So like, give me the oldest carpet. And then eventually I got hardwood floors. Then made my life easier. The dog has passed on, but I still have the hardwood floors. Now I have kids peeing on the floor. So it's, you know, just, it's a new, mostly joking. But yeah, mostly joking. It happens. It happens. Yeah, I mean, basically a toddler is like a puppy. Just they learn to walk, they learn to pee. They, you know, it's a similar iterative process. They're cute, you know. But the landlords make money when you move in, move out. That's how they make money. All right. Questions on the holdover. All right. There's a lot of stuff that comes after this in the reading, which I am not going to bother you on too much. The discussion of not employment discrimination. Landlord discrimination law is very important. I've never once tested on it. It's a very intricate area of the law. I think the book does a decent job discussing it. I can't do justice to it in a few minutes, but just be familiar with it, and I think that will be all you need to know from my class. What I would like you to know, though, are the different types of leases and to be able to distinguish these types of leases. So again, we have the term of years, we have the periodic tenancy, we have the tenancy at will, and we have the tenancy at sufferance. Right? Again, the tenancy at sufferance doesn't exist by itself. Like you can't say, hey, landlord, give me a tenancy at sufferance. It will usually follow one of the other types of wills, usually a term of years. That's usually where it follows. So it's not really a fourth one, but I'll sort of, the book says it's fourth one, so I'll do what the book says. With the term of years, it ends automatically at a certain date or time. There's no obligation to give any advance notice. You can just walk out and you're good. But if you stay in, you're a violation of the lease. You can't stay beyond that time. If you want to reach a new agreement to hold over, you can do that, but it has to be with consent of the landlord. The periodic tenancy renews each month or each year. And for a month-to-month lease, you must give a full calendar month notice. And for a year-to-year lease, you must give a full 6-month period notice. For the tenancy at will, either party can terminate at any point with 30 days notice. Not a calendar month, 30 days notice, which is often shorter. But if neither party terminates, it goes on basically forever until the death of the parties. When either one dies, the lease terminates. And then we have the sufferance, which really follows the term of years, where you can decide to go either month to month or year to year, even week to week, whatever you decide. And then there has to be an agreement for new rent to be paid. All right. That's all I have. Questions? Questions? Someone go, pss, pss, pss. You hear that? It's like some sort of whisper to get my attention. Any questions? Yes, Garrett, go ahead.
To make sure I have this right. So for periodic tenancy, if it's a month-to-month one, you have to give a full calendar month notice.
Mhm.
The tenants get will is 30 days.
Yeah, which is not the same thing.
Okay.
Often a calendar month means more than 30 days because you might give in the middle of a month and that doesn't count. Very good. Other questions? All right. Who's there? Go ahead. Yeah, Catherine, go ahead.
And it's more than a month because it's from first to first.
That's
correct?
right. Yeah. Right. Okay. All right. I think that's all I got. I think we're done a little bit early. It's not the end of the world. I'll start the minute poll now. I'll do office hours around 2:45, but thank you all. Have a wonderful day. Psst. Bye.
I was going to tell you, I actually had a landlord once tell me he preferred pets over children because they're actually less messy.
That might be true.
I understand.
They may make a little bit less noise, I suppose, but it's a trade-off. All right. I'll see everyone later. Bye-bye.